I'm pleased to invite on stage Ms. Roxana Voicu-Dorobanțu, who is our Senior Fellow of the Aspen New Economy and Society program and also a professor at the Bucharest University of Economic Studies. Roxana, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mirela. I am delighted to continue a conversation that started a little bit because the previous panel also talked about capital and also talked about innovation. So we are just taking it a bit further. And I will be joining this panel by Mr. Alex Petrescu, President of the of ASF. I was looking for you over there. My apologies. By Mr. Cosmin Vladimirescu, General Manager, Romania and Croatia for Mastercard. By I'm giving them time to sit down before inviting the next panelist. By Mr. Mustafa Tiftikcioğlu, who is the CEO of Garanti BBVA. And by Bizra Lucațintoiu, who is Deputy CEO of ING. As Minister Păslaru mentioned earlier, he is caught up in a press conference, and provided the press and the Bucharest traffic allows, he will join us throughout the panel. Thank you. We have quite a challenging topic, because Romania has the talent, has the location, has the ambition, but somehow things don't turn into projects. And more often than not, the reason why people say things don't turn into projects is the regulatory body, who is perceived to be both blockage for innovation, but on the other hand, we need regulation in order to safely scale up. So in this conundrum, I will turn to Alex and ask him, how do we manage to talk about smart regulation when technology moves faster than the laws, when the context has this also perception of both you're an obstacle, but we also need you?
Well, I have to say I profoundly disagree. So that's a good start.
It's always a good start.
Yeah. So I don't think the regulator is a business incubator. And I have to say, if there is a sense of slowness, probably you meant to say legislation. Because the regulator is closely following the legislation in place. And sometimes, I have to agree here with you, the legislation is not moving fast enough. And it's already known that it's been always taking a bit of time before we translate EU directives and recommendations in local legislation, so unfortunately it's a known fact. So probably from here we have a sense of slowness or not moving fast enough to be ahead of the herd. But the regulators generally, they should be, we overuse now the word smart regulators, but this time is really a good match because we need to do smart regulations. And subsidiary to this concept basically comes down to adopting digitalization. So here we talk about supervisory technology, SAPTech. We talk about RegTech, regulatory technology. So basically everybody's a DIY regulatory framework for the whole subjects of supervision. Generally, the regulator should ensure fair game, should ensure, and it does in Romania, consumer protection and market stability. So our aim and scope of existence is not necessarily to ensure volatility, because, okay, on one hand, we would love to see a quick adoption of technology, but that quick adoption should be made in a safe manner, to ensure stable profits, stable market, because at the end of the day, we can only build brick by brick. So from that point of view, I have to say the first stock exchange, I don't know, appeared somewhere in Amsterdam in 1522. After that, we had the second one in London in the 17th century. The first regulator, again, the Bubble Act in 1722. SEC after the Great Depression, 1938. So eventually, once we appear on the market, the regulators, we enhance business. So if we look back a couple of or more centuries, the regulators really helped the business grow, but they made it growth in a stable manner. They made the fortune to be passed from generation to the generation. So if you allow me a final diagnosis of what the regulators does, I have to say the regulator should be a business enhancement element in the marketplace, for sure, not an inhibitor. So, of course, it comes down from country to country, from president to president. At the end of the day, an institution is a person. However we want to put it, of course, we have a framework of where we shift and move. But at the end of the day, us as president, vice presidents, boards of supervision and so on, we need to be with an eye on market stability, on consumer protection, and with an eye on looking forward, adopting new technology. Of course, it's a very thin line, but I have to say I'm proud that our authority and my colleagues at the authority, we are doing the right thing.
Do we keep on playing catching up with other frameworks? Because that is usually one of the critiques that comes to the regulator, that in terms of capital, we keep on, playing catch up to the market, and that it's not necessarily a question of speed, but at some point that speed turns into a deterrent.
There is a level of catching up, I have to say, and I believe that's the right approach, because I wouldn't feel comfortable to have a fast forward integration of technologies that are not proven to be benign. You can't throw in the marketplace just for the sake of being a fast forward thinker and an evangelist of digital technology with any cost. So from our point of view, I like a regulator to have a conservative approach. I think this is important, to have assumed measured risks, because at the end of the day, I'd like to see people having reasonable pensions right in time for the amount, from the amount length of time, rather than have skipping technologies from one to the other just for the sake of enhancement. So from my perspective, I think hitting the right balance, it's the key to success of a regulator. In the particular case of Romania, it's a known fact that we've been moving forward when we had an obligation to comply. So once we joined EU, we had a whole set of changing the whole ecosystem of legislation to comply. Now, luckily, I have to say, we have the OECD. And I've been witnessing and contributor to aligning the current legislation. If we talk about insurance, capital markets, or pensions, there's a whole effort to actually turn around the whole legislative landscape to comply. And we don't tend probably to blow on our own sails and move forward as self-motivators, okay? I made peace with that at 50 years old and 25 years of administration, but at least we are good in complying. So we comply. There are 27 committees OECD. I'm happy to say that we've been resolving more than half of them. We are very close and realistically to become a fully fledged member of OECD by the second half of next year. So, okay, self-motivation is something we should all work as a nation, but when we have and we set a goal to join an organization such prestigious as this one, in this case, we are good in really making the step to comply. So I would say I'm optimistic from that point of view. And once we have the new framework in place, you'll see things are going to have a faster path in development. And already, I have to say, across all the markets we regulate, all the indicators are positive, are on growth, on a healthy growth. I'm not keen to see quick jumps ahead because that makes me a bit nervous. And if we are nervous, the whole market is nervous. And we don't like that. We don't like volatility. We like stable growth. And we deliver that from our perspective.
I think this is probably the first panel in all the Bucharest Forum years in which the conversation was not on we need money, but rather we have money, we just need to make sure that they are in the proper framework and they deliver the proper impact. And I will turn to Cosmin because in your organization, you've balanced both innovation and building ecosystems with initiatives such as Strive. That has now a couple of months, close to a year, if I'm not mistaken. How complicated is it to balance these two elements, still focus on impact? How do you translate innovation into scalable business? And at your size, in a scalable business for the entire ecosystem, not just for you?
Well, that's a tough question, but it's a good one. So first of all, I got a sense of you having a hidden question in the initial statement. Yes, we're getting ready for the second iteration of Strive, so if that's what you wanted to hear. All right.
Tell us a little bit about Strive, because I know about it, but I'm pretty sure that people...
I will, for sure. So, first of all, I'm glad to tell you that Romania has a vibrant appetite for innovation. And the uptake of digital tools is quite astonishing. And we've witnessed in the past how swift the migration from cash payments to contactless was in Romania, was leading not only in Europe, but I think throughout the entire world. And I think that's the basis of scalable innovation, which is not leaving people behind, being inclusive, and also gets the attention of the investors and brings in the capital which the market needs. But there are some things, right? So definitely, and that's the main reason why we have Strive Romania. We have a bunch of talented people who have the vision, natural-born entrepreneurs, if you allow me to. And they applied for Strive, for the European round of Strive. I can tell you that the vast majority of the applicants came from Romania. That unfortunately didn't translate it into getting the capital, the investment from Strive. And that's a pity because they didn't know how to pitch. They weren't sure what needs to be done in order for their bright ideas to scale up. And that's the reason why I'm telling you that besides this talent, we also need a certain level of market maturity, which is needed because this is what the investors are looking for. They're looking for certainty that the companies, the SMEs that they are investing in are going to scale up. This is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to prove that ideas coming from Romania, if funded properly and if helped, advised properly, will scale up. That's the purpose of Strive Romania, okay? And also you need good, open-minded legislation, which exactly like Alex said, will help grow businesses in a sustainable, inclusive way. And I can't stress enough the inclusive part of growing digitally in a sustainable way, because we all know Romania is still very much polarized, and we can't afford to leave anyone behind. And I think that's the beauty of all things going digital.
That we can bridge the gap.
Yes.
How do we bridge the gap in financing as well? Because one of the topics, and building on what you have mentioned, one of the topics throughout the day was about having like two worlds, one in which you have small entrepreneurship, usually for subsistence. Minister Ivan mentioned that, yes, agriculture is good, but it doesn't have a lot of value added. And then the push for value added projects. And the balance that I was asking you about is also about this. How do we balance projects that also tackle that part? You know, subsistence entrepreneurship, if you wish, that ensure the contactless, and also high value added projects that bring in the market maturity that you were mentioning.
I think there's a way to satisfy and grow both. And that's exactly what I meant by being inclusive. Being inclusive not only to the end consumer, but being also inclusive in regards to the SMEs and what they're doing. And I'll tell you a story, okay? So, luckily for Mastercard in Romania, whenever we open a position, I have hundreds of applicants in 24 hours. Somehow know what's happening in Israel, which happens to be in our division, right? We're in the same group of countries. In Israel, when we open a job, which is equally cool as it is in Romania, right? It's the same company, same values, same principles. Maybe we get 5 applicants after 2 weeks. And the reason for that is that every single one of them wants to is an entrepreneur. He's not giving up. Whenever he hits a bump in the road, he shapes off the dirt on his shoes and pants and picks up a new fight with one goal in mind. I will scale up. I will be the next Waze. I will sell my successful business to Google for 5 billion euros. All right? I'm not saying that all businesses should aim to be that, but they should all be sustainable and strong enough to get the desired results. And there's a way of doing that. And it involves going digital, having that backbone of legislation which provides security. And also, there's another thing which I recently heard about, and it's a bit mind-boggling. Digital fatigue, right? But, I mean, that's true, right? I mean, we are so much bombarded by technology and all things going digital that we tend to get fed up by technology. And education is very important, right? We need to educate people, and also we need to provide the security that once things go indeed in the digital direction that everyone desires, there will be a safety net around people which will protect them. Yeah.
Somehow we keep on adding ideas about risks to the table, although we didn't necessarily start like that. And I will turn to Mustafa and add yet another angle in which Turkey is quite versed. That is the being at a clash of blocks, you know, and Romania is also known for that. I would by no means imply that that both of our countries are covered by uncertainty, because the entire world is. But you, in your position as a CEO, handling such a large organization as Garanti BBVA Romania, how do you see this balance, and I'll stress again the word, between, you know, growth and also handling uncertainty and handling the geopolitical issues and the frameworks and all the rest that come?
You are right. I mean, you have touched quite an important point, both in terms of overall strategy and also in terms of our relationship with regulation and how we implement that strategy. Now, looking at our overall structure, of course, as Garanti BBVA Romania, our first level shareholder, Garanti BBVA Turkey, it is an institution or a bank outside of EU. This is maybe one level of complication, but also at the higher level, at the ultimate shareholder level, we are part of the BBVA group, which is one of the largest European banks. And normally this kind of atypical structure adds certain complications in terms of our regulation, in terms of our relationship. Of course, we have a very good relationship with our regulator, National Bank of Romania, but also at the EU level, when we are discussing, or our ultimate shareholder, BBVA Group, is discussing at the ECB level or the Single Resolution Board level. This is kind of an atypical structure which everybody is focusing on, and it is also one of the challenges for us. But also looking at the macro challenges that you have also mentioned and implied, this is also a fact. Now looking at Turkey and Romania, both countries have twin deficits. This is an issue. Both countries have relatively, of course, I mean, the inflation level in Turkey is much higher when compared with the inflation level in Romania. Relatively higher levels of inflation. These are challenges. But at the same time, what we see, and as a bank, what we are trying to serve our customers in that respect is Turkey and Romania are quite strong strategical partners. And throughout the years, this partnership has strengthened even more. And we know that both in terms of foreign direct investment, Turkey has been one of the major investors in Romania. In terms of trade flows, exports, imports, again, we are very strong trade partners. The tourism activity is increasing. We are seeing that in defense cooperation has increased, and it will even further increase. So there are several areas which we see, especially in infrastructure. We have started to see many Turkish contractor groups have taken up projects, infrastructure projects in Romania. So apart from the challenges, we also see the upside and the significant strategic relationship between Turkey and Romania, where we are also trying to support our customers, both our Turkish customers and Romanian customers, for that transformation. This is one of the factors. And coming to the second part of your question about how we are trying to manage that uncertainty, what we are trying to look at is the longer term or the medium term perspective, because apart from the ups and downs, we are quite positive about Romania's medium term to longer term potential. We know that the convergence with EU averages will continue. And looking at my experience here, my term here, I came during the COVID period, and I remember that at the COVID period, the expectations were kind of negative for many markets and also for Romania, which I think Romania managed quite well in that period. Immediately after the Ukrainian invasion and the Ukrainian war started, this was also a point of concern, which Romania again managed quite successfully. Now again, we are going through a period where macro parameters are difficult, especially the budget deficit and the fiscal measures. Now the expectations and the perception has turned to negative, which we think that Romania again will be able to sustain quite well. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to look at the longer term perspective, focusing on our customers, trying to continue supporting our customers. And the second dimension is also continuously investing in technology that we have undertaken a significant project, and we are trying to complete this in the coming period.
Building on this, in previous panels, we were discussing, I mean, in previous years, we were discussing about sustainable finance and ESG because the capital used to go there. But now we're talking about strategic capital. Do you see them going in the same direction, or is there a clash between them?
Well, from our perspective, on the contrary, I mean, what we see, this is quite complementary. We know that this is important for Romania, and it is also, from our group perspective, one of our 6 strategic priorities, supporting sustainability and green transition. And looking at Romania, I think the potential is great. We are trying to support our customers now. Maybe the focus is on green energy, but also in battery storage, in also other areas, increasing the efficiency of manufacturing. We are seeing many other investments, and this is also continuing to be a focus area for us. And not only for us, looking at the market, the Romanian market, what I see is this is the case for other banks as well. And looking at the club loans or the syndicated loans, we are seeing that the conditions are even quite aggressive in terms of providing the best conditions in terms of overall maturity, in terms of balloon payments, in terms of flexibilities for dividend upstreaming. So the conditions are quite supportive in the Romanian market. So I think that this will continue, and this is also one of our strategic priorities.
I will turn to Raluca to add another perspective to it. That is the perspective of it. I mean, is there a gap between perception and reality in terms of investing in Romania and in the CEE? Or is what we hear about it the real deal? How do you see that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, one that I've been, in fact, asking myself as well. And I think, to some degree, I believe there is a gap. There is a gap between perception that outside investors have, or international banks, or even, you know, the global teams dealing with sectors and products of banks, and reality here. And what I'm trying to say is that, in fact, reality is better than the perception. In fact, perception is maybe several years old, and people did not update their views. And I think this is, to some degree, normal, because in reality, Romania has grown tremendously over the past, say, 10 years. I myself, I have to admit, I've been out of the country for about 6 years. And upon my return in the local financial industry, I'm quite impressed by the level of progress. More sophisticated instruments, more sophisticated borrowers, more sophisticated companies, more aggressive terms in lending and in the financial products that are now being available on the market, more important capital market projects that we've been waiting for many years, actually. So it's true that sometimes perception did not pick up with that, and this is, I guess, one of our roles, you know, local bankers, to try to educate the international community, our own colleagues, and I guess maybe it's worthwhile even thanking the clients that might be, our clients that might be here today, and that are helping us in this, because every time, you know, we have colleagues from the global teams coming to visit us, and we discuss, the reality with our clients, perception changes. So it requires some education, but it does happen. And that makes me very optimistic about the future, because we had several successes this year of transactions unprecedented in Romania. Some are public, some are not, but hopefully they will become public soon, so we can praise. And I guess, more is needed, I think.
Because we are on more is needed, I have a question for all of you that has 3 parts, and I would like very, very short, if possible, one-word answers to them. What partnership do we still need in this market? What risk do you think we should have talked more about? And one initiative in your industry, in your community, that gives us a better glimpse at the future of Romania, one that's more inclusive, fairer, and still have a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, again, a very good question. I guess, and maybe I will repeat what has already been said here. I think what could help us even more is getting more transparency of sort of longer-term plans, a more strategic country plan that could assist financiers to actually, create a financial backbone for investments, for the longer-term development of the country. I think this has become visible. Again, there is progress, and I think in the energy, for instance, in the energy sector, we see this more and more, also because many of the companies, of the large players, are already listed. They already have a speech in front of investors and all that. But there are some areas where more transparency and more longer-term visibility could help as well, because once banks know about the future investments, then they can also plan for more effective financial schemes.
One word about the risk.
I think the risk is that we will have like a puzzle. And maybe financial terms will not be optimal, and maybe some structures we will miss if we don't act in coordination in an articulated way.
Mustafa?
Well,
Partnership missing, risk.
In terms of partnerships, I sometimes feel that the short-term discussions are overshadowing the medium-term and longer-term potential. So, I mean, if we can, of course, it will be an advisory partnership because all the execution powers are, and they will continue to be with the government, with the regulators. I think the partnership, advisory partnership between the industry players, the banks, and also government and the regulators for not missing the medium-term perspective in terms of absorption of funds, in terms of strategic sectors to support, in terms of financing structures, so that would be helpful. In terms of the risks, again, what I feel currently, maybe this is a biased opinion, but I think that the banks are over-regulated and over-controlled, but other players in the finance, especially the new players, the fintech players, the crypto area, alternative coins, non-fungible tokens, the payment institutions, they are not as regulated and as controlled as they should be. So this is, I think, the risk is built up because the scales are increasing there. So I think that the fraud risks, the cybersecurity risks are significant. So that's an area I think that should be balanced in terms of overall regulation and control. And maybe finally, I mean, in the banking industry, what I would like to see is, maybe this is also being discussed at the European level as well, more simpler and streamlined regulation. This is what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Cosmin? What partnership is missing?
I can only echo the others, right? I think they were spot on. I think we still need a bit of practice in, finding that middle ground, seeing the bigger picture, looking for impact, aligning our interests, but it's doable. I mean, we've done it in the past, something like ghișeu, right? So it works. You can find that middle ground that Romania deserves, and then the growth will happen, investments will come, Romania will thrive, and it will be good for all of us. On risks, lack of education, we're still lagging behind, and we need to accelerate that. And I can't say this enough and loud enough and often enough. We deserve better education which also looks at digitalization and finances, and because without that, we won't be ready and we won't be able to close the gap. That's one thing. Cybersecurity, that's another thing which needs to be looked very closely at. Right? We invested, I think, close to $10 billion in the last 5 years in cybersecurity tools and platforms. We are ready to deploy. Unfortunately, the current context shows that we have a dire need for that. Yeah. And what was the third one? Things which work?
One initiative in your institution, in your industry, or in your community that gives us hope for Romania's future.
I can use the same example, ghișeul, right? I mean, it's not about collecting taxes, it's about making it inclusive, accessible to everyone in a safe, fast, trackable way.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, what partnership, what risk, what initiative?
Okay, I'll have a slightly more philosophical take on your question. I noticed that Cosmin, Mustafa, they had a bit more of a bankers-based approach, talking about regulatory frameworks and projects. I'll probably say that we all lean on each other. We are all dependable on each other, banks, regulators, funds, consumers, investors, institutional, individual investors. We really can't function without our complementarity among each other. What partnership is missing? We probably are in the right partnerships, and when the need will arise, we'll probably know the direction the same way we've been always doing it. So in terms of risks, I would probably say operational risk, because you have the partnership on one side, we have this dependency on each other, which brings interconnectivity. Of course, the digital base brings risk associated with cybersecurity, like Cosmin was saying, and we are basically as strong as the weakest of us. So the moment is a weak spot in this interconnectivity ecosystem of constantly partnering, enhancing, enlarging the circle of trust. At some point, if there is a soft spot, that could be abused, targeted, and of course will bring damage to all of us. So it's nice to be together, it's nice to stick together, it's nice to reach to each other as institutions and actors, part of this climate, but in the same time we need to protect each of us because we protect each other. So it's always, again, a fine line.
And that's a very good note to wrap up on, because both the Aspen Institute and the Bucharest Forum has provided such a framework for putting us together and having us converse on this. On this very optimistic note, thank you so much for sharing a glimpse of hope that we have everything on the table. We have the proper partnerships. And about the risks that you have mentioned, some of them are part of the Bucharest Forum agenda for tomorrow. So stay tuned for the other panels as well. And that being said, thank you so much. And see you at the next one.